are back for another episode of the Integrative Health Simplified podcast. I'm Carrie, and I'm excited to dive into yet another common health misconception. That is the series that we are in. We are continuing this really important series, I feel, because there are so many misconceptions in the field that I work in. And so I just want to bring some of these to you just as maybe even just like a conversation starter, a mind shifter, a way to help you to see things in a different light. How about that? So in today's episode, we are talking about the metabolism and how I know in my mind and in a lot of our minds, we just think that it slows as you get older and that it's just kind of the way it is. It's just a part of life. And if you possibly don't help it out, sure, it does slow, and it doesn't take long either, right? It's not, maybe we thought that, as you maybe even get to like 50 or 60, it really slows down and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Maybe that's what I had in my mind. Maybe you had another like age in your mind. I mean, some people think that after high school, your metabolism just really slows down, and after 30, you can just forget about it. So whatever your conception is about metabolism, I really want to dive into this subject because I think that it's something maybe we previously, or maybe this is just me, I don't want to assume, but I think just in generally speaking, it's something that we feel like we can't really control. It's just sort of part of getting older, that it's going to slow down. And if we want to maintain maybe the weight, because that's really what we kind of associated with metabolism. Like somebody that has a high metabolism can eat whatever they want and not gain weight. And somebody with a slower metabolism can just eat very little and still gain weight, right? It's just something that is very associated with weight. And so, if you want to maintain your weight and you're getting older, you're either going to have to work out more or eat less or both. And there's really nothing else besides that you can do with it. But I want to talk about really what the metabolism is and how it's so much more than just weight. What is the definition of metabolism? Really, it's defined as the process essential for life by which the complex substances of cells of living things are either built up or broken down. So that's kind of the definition that you would find if you Googled it, which is what I did, right? So really, to make that in simpler terms, it's really the sum of every cell process in our body. It's just the way that our body runs as far as how it gets energy, how the organs work, all of those things. And that's why it affects so many things in our health span. If we think about, a lot of these things get broken down into different spheres of things that we would focus on. These are things like thyroid health, digestion, monthly cycle or hormones, energy, sex drive, stress hormones, detox. These are all things that we kind of maybe put in different boxes, but the metabolism affects all of these things. And so that's why it's really one of the greatest tools for assessing overall health. And so I think really when you realize what the metabolism is and how it can affect your overall health, it kind of just makes you start asking or thinking about it in terms of like bigger questions. And so, and really putting together the pieces. And oftentimes it helps us to stop symptom chasing and really get out of these spheres of health that I mentioned earlier. These are things like gut health or hormone health or thyroid or autoimmune even. These are definitely things that we can just really super be hyper focused on. And we're sort of missing the bigger picture of things. And metabolism really helps us to look at things from maybe a 30-foot view would be a good way to put it, because it is the sum of every cell process in our body, and it's how things are built up or broken down. And so that really helps you to see, wow, like your metabolic health really does matter for so much more than just weight. Maybe that's what you had originally thought. And so I want to just give you a little bit more information on metabolism and how we can really tell if ours needs to be improved, and then how we can take steps to actually improve our metabolic health. And I want to just preface this. I'm not going to be able to really deep dive into this subject in a 15-minute podcast, which is really about the length that I like to keep a podcast episode, but I want to just help you to see this in a different light. So that's kind of my goal with this episode, because here's the thing. This was me. If you find yourself focused in these different spheres of health, you're not alone. We can totally do that, just because that's kind of the way that a lot of the information in this holistic health space is presented. So you can deep dive into gut health or hormone health or thyroid health. Again, like there's all of these different like kind of niches that you can deep dive into, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes we really miss out on looking at things from a 30-foot view. And again, this is what I fell victim to. You've heard me share in different recent podcast episodes that I really struggled with a sluggish digestive system. And so, of course, I really focused on gut health for a while. And I didn't really understand how my metabolic function was playing into all of this, and how not having regular bowel movements is a key sign to a sluggish metabolism. And so this was really a big aha moment for me when I realized all this. And so hopefully this can be somewhat of an aha moment for you if you are dealing with some of these symptoms that I'm going to mention that would really point to a sluggish metabolism. So let's talk about those for just a minute. So this is a list. It's not exhaustive, but these are some of the more common keys that will help you to kind of, see if how many of these you check off, I guess, might be a really good indication as far as how your metabolism function is. So how do you know if it's low, right? That's what we want it to be higher. And so how do you know if yours is low and it might need a little bit of help? So number one would be cold hands and feet. So if you just think about your metabolic function as the way your body produces energy, and even the one thing that we'll talk about is the temperature of your body. It's lower than it should be. So that's another one, body temperature lower than 97.8 whenever you wake up in the morning. Obviously, your body temperature should rise throughout the day. So a body temperature lower than that in the morning could mean that you have sluggish that you have sluggish metabolic function. And so this would make sense why cold hands and feet are one of the main symptoms of a sluggish metabolism, because your body temperature is just lower than it should be in general. And so this is something that I hear a lot from women, and I think that it's just kind of, it's something maybe you don't really recognize as like a huge issue. You're just like, man, I just feel colder. Like I just can't get warm. But I hear this a lot from women. And I guess now that I know this, I'm like, that's a sign, but cold hands and feet are definitely a really, really telltale sign of a sluggish metabolism. So I mentioned the body temperature, also low pulse. So again, all these things are just kind of your body's just not really having the energy and the output that we want. And so a pulse lower than 75, obviously that would be like a resting pulse. So that's just something that I always had a low pulse. So these are just keys that I never really thought about. Brittle hair is one. Brittle hair and nails. You can kind of put that in the same category there. That can be a sign. Afternoon crashes, like you really need a nap. You really just find it hard to get through the afternoon without having maybe like coffee or some kind of energy drink. That's a big, big sign. Not being a morning person. Now, don't take this personally, but if it takes you like an hour or two to wake up and you're like, I do not want to see anybody or talk to anybody in the morning, maybe you're not hungry in the morning either, you just find it really hard to wake up, that is a super big sign that your metabolism is not going very well. Like it's not really revved up. It's kind of low because it just, again, it takes a while for you to get moving. Like your body just doesn't seem to want to get up and go. And especially with the not being hungry in the morning, it means that your metabolism, like we should be wanting to break our fast in the morning. Like we've been fasting overnight. We should want to break that whenever we get up in the morning. And so if you're not wanting to break that, that means your body is not really utilizing energy properly, which means really a sluggish metabolism. So that's another. Waking during the night or not necessarily being able to go to sleep very well at night, that can be a sign of a sluggish metabolism just because your body can't regulate very well. Your nervous system might even be affected and probably is affected because of that. Excessive thirst and urination. This was definitely something that I had as well. this is something that a lot of women I also hear talk about this, because they talk about they don't want to drink as much water because they do have to go to the bathroom so much more often. Or maybe they just are like, gosh, I can never get enough water. I just always feel thirsty. So that can definitely not just be the metabolism. It could be mineral imbalance as well, which they kind of go hand in hand, because obviously metabolism functions need minerals to function. So that's another one. And then last but not least is not having regular bowel movements. So 1 to 3 bowel movements a day, unassisted. I want to really emphasize that, because sometimes we're like, oh, I'm going because I'm taking all of these things. And again, I would rather you go than not go. However, if you're still having to take something to have regular bowel movements, you still probably need to be working on metabolic function, because again, that could be multifaceted. It's probably not just metabolic function, but again, if we think about metabolism as a whole, then it's going to affect all of these systems. So even if you are working on something like gut health, I'm not saying you need to just ditch that and only work on the metabolism. However, they do go together. So work on both of them at the same time. So those are some telltale signs and symptoms. So if you feel like you checked off a lot of those, then you definitely want to just start thinking about how you can support the metabolism. And so again, I really like to keep these episodes sort of short and simplified, because there is so much that we could talk about when it comes to this. And I don't want to overwhelm you. So I just want to give you some ideas to think about in respect to supporting your metabolism and over time increasing your metabolism. I think one of the biggest things that we can do is just kind of step away from diet culture, because diet culture has told us that we need to eat low carb, we need to eat low calorie, lean protein is best, we need to have a green at every meal, no to dairy, no to sugar. Like, I've really addressed a lot of these in past episodes, specifically veggies, dairy, sugar. I've talked about all of those things in past episodes. So go check those out if you've not listened to those, or if you're interested in that. But these are all things that maybe we just took as the gospel and we've just kind of lived like this. However, I just want you to kind of try to get away from black or white thinking, because really, whenever you think about supporting your metabolism, you need to be looking at nourishing and giving your body the energy that it needs down to the cellular level. That's what's going to support your metabolism. And so just to think about, like, yes, we live in a very stressful world, but let's not add to that stress, because when we don't eat enough, when we don't give our body what it needs as far as nutrients, that does add stress. And so how can we eat in a way that takes stress off of our body? And really, the thyroid is a big player in this, because it's the conductor of our metabolism. And so whenever we are under so much stress, our body slows down to conserve energy. It can also hold on to excess weight. It's like a conservation thing, right? It feels very attacked. So it needs to like conserve energy. It needs to conserve the food that it's giving us. And sometimes that can look like extra weight. But it's not necessarily just because you're getting older, right? It's because you're not giving your body what it needs. And then there's all this extra stress. And so again, our body is wired for survival. So it's going to do those things because it wants to survive. So make the most of what you can control. Like, this isn't a conversation about like how we need to eliminate all the stress from our lives. Definitely not. But we need to think about what we can control and start focusing on those things. So again, I talked about in a previous episode about how glucose is the preferred source of energy for our body. Like, that's biology. That's the same for everybody. And so whenever we think about giving our body the correct amount of glucose that it needs, that's a really big deal. When you think about the metabolism being the energy, glucose is the source of energy that our body needs and wants. So just simply looking at how much you're eating is my takeaway for you today, because you would be, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, maybe you would, I don't know, but I don't know why I'm still surprised that so many of my clients are under eating. And whenever they do this nutritional calculator that I give them, they're like, I should be eating how much? And some are totally open to it, and others are like, I could never eat that much, like I'm going to gain so much weight, etc. And so I just want to, again, start this conversation and just prompt you to look to see how many calories overall. And really, that's just the first step, but looking to see what those calories entail, right? We want nutrient dense calories. And so that's my tip for you, is just to see where you're at and where you need to be. And so I actually have a nutritional calculator that can be found in my free PDF. It's called 3 Steps to Support Daily Detox for Better Energy. And of course, you can get more tips other than just the nutritional calculator in there, but that is a part of that. So if you want to check that out, you can do so. I'll put the link in the show notes and then the description of this video. But I want you to really consider switching your mindset, because I think somewhere along the way, we thought that we should be eating 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day, and that's just not enough. It's just not, right? Maybe that might be enough for my 10-year-old, but it's not enough for a grown adult that, is active, that has stressors, that I need extra energy for my body to process that. There's all kind of different things that this specific nutritional calculator that I'm going to share with you really takes into account that others don't. So maybe you've done nutritional calculating before just to see how many overall calories that you need, but this one might be a little bit different. So I would encourage you to check it out. Again, you can find that free download via the link that I'll share. It'll be in the show notes and the description of this video, depending on where you're taking in this content. But I hope this has been helpful, and it's a conversation that probably will be continued on another episode, just because this is a bigger conversation as far as what all affects the metabolism and how we can support it. There are a lot of ways, but if you're not eating enough, it's going to be really hard to improve your metabolism. That's why I gave you this one tip, because it's so important. So go check that nutritional calculator out. Let me know if you have any questions. I would be more than happy to help. Again, you can always email me. Carrie@carriecootie.com is my personal email. I respond to all my emails, so feel free to message me there. You can always message me on Instagram. I do always respond to those messages also. So glad we can have these conversations. We can tackle these common health misconceptions and just really get some good, strong, supportive information around them, so that, again, I'm not saying you have to agree with me right now. I just want I want to put a rock in your shoe even, right? And so I hope these episodes are doing that. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.